During the pandemic, the cost of building a home skyrocketed. Materials were scarce, tradespeople were limited, and the home builders in Halifax were under a ton of pressure. But the big question was, can a home builder walk away from a contract just because their costs go up, or can they ask the buyer to pay more money after a deal is firm and binding? And in this particular case, the courts have given us an answer, and it cost this particular Halifax home builder $280,000. But just before I get into the details of the home build, the lawsuit, and the outcome, if you're new here, my name is Andrew Stevens. I'm a realtor in Halifax, and in the last 10 years, I've sold over 500 houses. And if you're looking to be educated on the Halifax real estate market, then hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. And if you're thinking about making a move in the Halifax and Dartmouth area, you can reach out to me anytime in the Calendly link below. All right, so let's start off with the deal itself and how it all started. So in January of 2021, a buyer had an accepted offer with a builder in the Brunello Estates area to purchase a home for $597,000. Now, in February, all the conditions were met, and this was now a firm and binding contract for the builder to build this home, which was supposed to close in October of 2021. In April, the builder told them that their construction would be delayed due to the COVID-19 situation, citing problems like short supply, high prices of materials, and a lack of labor in the market. And they gave the buyer two options. Option number one was to increase the purchase price by $15,000 to accommodate this, and the build would continue moving forward. Now, at this stage in the build, all they had in the ground were the footings, just the foundation, that's it. And then the second option was that they would let the buyer out of their contract, and they would give them their deposit back, and the buyer could just move on. The buyer refused to pay more money, and they said that to them, the contract was still fully enforceable, and they were expecting their home to be completed in October of 2021 as per the contract. So because the buyer declined to pay the extra $15,000, the builder said that their build progress would be stopped immediately, and they used Clause 7 in the Agreement of Purchase and Sale as kind of their way out, so to speak. So Clause 7, just so you know, reads like this. Clause 7, delays. The closing date may be affected if delays occur which are caused by unfavorable weather, strikes, fire, availability of materials and/or labor, decisions of the buyer, or any other causes beyond the reasonable control of the seller. The seller shall provide details for the cause of delays and provide their best estimate to the buyer to the effect that such delays shall have on the seller's work and the closing date. No such extension shall be made for the aforesaid delays unless the buyer is advised by the seller in writing within 7 days of the occurrence of the delay. So the buyers waited, and throughout this period, they were checking on the home. There was no progress being made. There was nothing happening with their build until about 5 months later. And there was some correspondence back and forth in terms of emails and things like this between some lawyers trying to rectify the situation. But at the end of the day, the buyer refused to pay the extra $15,000, and construction completely stopped for about 5 months on this build. And by the time they resumed, obviously they did not finish the home for the October closing date. And long story short, once they passed the closing date, then the seller was considered to be in breach of contract. The buyer walked away, and then they went and eventually bought another home, and they sued the seller, which is the builder in this case. They sued the builder for breach of contract, and they were looking basically to get the difference from the builder from the new purchase price on the home they bought versus the purchase price that they had under agreement when they first had this deal in place. So in this lawsuit, the buyer was saying that the builder was in breach of contract because they did not deliver the product on time, and they said that they really didn't have to pay more, and that wasn't a justifiable reason why the builder could make them pay more or why they could delay the build on this house. And the builder obviously argued the opposite. They said that the COVID-19 situation made it impossible to fulfill the contract. They stated that supply shortages were a huge factor here, and they also stated that to mitigate the losses, the buyer should have just paid them the extra $15,000 because that, based on the circumstances, was the easiest way for the buyer to mitigate their losses based on this particular lawsuit situation. So here's what the courts found in terms of just hitting on kind of the high points. So the big one here is that the court found that the reason the build stopped was actually due to increased prices and loss of profits for the builder, not the fact that they couldn't get the materials. So they proved this by saying that here's all the other homes they were building in the area, and they continue building homes for the buyers that agreed to pay the extra $15,000, or maybe it was a different amount of money in certain circumstances. But all of these homes in this particular subdivision were built with the same basic materials in terms of the foundation, the framing, the windows, the roofing, so on. But at the end of the day, the builder paused because the buyer didn't allow them to increase the price by $15,000, not because there was a material shortage. And it's funny because it actually states in the court documents what the purchase price was, what the cost was to build, and so on. So if you look at the court ruling, you can see that on this $597,000 purchase price, the profits were actually going to be in line with $142,000, give or take. So the builder kind of started this whole shitstorm over $15,000, but that profit still would have been north of $125,000 on this home build if they just kept the process going the way that they should have. The builder at one point was asked to produce text messages, emails, or whatever from project managers upwards to the managers and the owners of the company stating that there were serious issues with getting the materials that they needed, and they could not produce anything to this effect. On top of this, the builder produced several letters from their suppliers. There was 8 of them in total, and honestly, I don't really think that helped their cause because 6 of them talked about price increases, but not about shortages of the materials that they were using. So again, price driven, not material shortage driven. Throughout the case, the builder argued that even if they kept the price the same, they wouldn't have been able to deliver the home on time for an October closing. But during the court ruling, they said that this was proven otherwise because there were other similar properties that were being built in same timeframes, and they said that if build kept going in April like it should have, they would have had no problem delivering the product on time for an October closing. So at the end of the day, the court made its ruling, and they ruled that the contract was not frustrated because of the pandemic situation. They ruled that the builder had no right to increase the price, and they ruled that the build could have been completed in a timely manner with regards to the October closing. So because of this, the court awarded to the buyer just over $255,000 for damages, which was the difference in the home that they bought eventually, that purchase price less the purchase price they had under contract with the home they were building with this builder. And then there was an additional $25,000 tacked in there for some other mortgage interest costs that they incurred because of this situation, which totaled just over $280,000 that the builder had to pay this buyer because of this. So what does this mean for the home builder in this case? Well, they originally had this home under contract to build for $597,000. It sold eventually in 2022 to a different buyer, and as you know, in 2021, the market was up by about 25%. So they did a lot better on this build than originally anticipated, and they ended up selling the same build for $722,000. So about $125,000 more than they originally had anticipated with the first contract. But even if you do the math, the home builder on this one is probably still in theory going a little bit backwards on this build after they pay out the $280,000 to this particular buyer that won the court case. And this case sets a whole new precedent for situations like this in the Halifax real estate market. If you're buying a new construction home, this proves that your contract means something, even in unpredictable markets. And to the builders, it is a warning. You cannot change the parameters of the contract or the build just because you want to line your pockets with more profit. And if you're still here watching, I know this video is a little bit different on my channel than some of my other ones, and I do have a similar court case on my channel from about a year ago, which was between a buyer and a seller, not a home builder. But I'm curious to hear from you in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think the buyer should have won this court case, or do you think the builder was in their right to delay and push the price point up in this situation because of everything they were dealing with within the pandemic? Honestly, in my eyes, I don't believe that the builder should have asked for more money in this circumstance. There was plenty of profit there for them to eat a little bit more of that profit margin. $15,000 is a drop in the bucket compared to the approximate $140,000 or $145,000 worth of profit that they had. So yeah, I think the buyer was within their right. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of buyers would never go after a builder like this, right? They would see the legal costs adding up. They would say that, well, they're just going to be outpowered by, a big corporation and things like this. This was a pretty big builder in Halifax. They're very well known. I didn't name them in this video because that's not what it's about. I'm not trying to out anybody or anything like that, but this court case is public, so you can find it online. But at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of buyers probably were within their right to sue their builder or to sue their contractor based on some things that were happening in around the time of, 2020, 2021, and 2022. But a lot of people wouldn't. They would have just walked away, or they would have just paid the extra money. And I wonder how they feel now seeing some of these cases come down the pipeline, which are setting kind of this precedent moving forward. But again, I'm curious to hear from you in the comments below. What do you think should have happened in this case? Should the buyer have won, or should the builder have won this court case? And if you're still here watching and you got any value out of this video, all I ask is that you hit that like button and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future content. That'll help push this out to more people like you who may be interested in hearing more stories like this about the Halifax and Nova Scotia real estate markets. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and have a great day.